history of child sex abuse by priests in Colorado exposed after decades of secrecy. A new report finds even since 2002, the church failed to report most sex abuse allegations. Tonight, an accused priest speaks. A survivor shares his story, and the Denver Archdiocese ignores our questions. Getting mental health help as quick as you can call 911, a simple idea with a $500 million price tag. And President Trump announces he's building a border wall in Colorado. Wait till someone shows him a map. That's next. 166 survivors of child sex abuse. 166 Coloradans victimized by the priests they trusted. They came forward, each one to bring light to a culture of secrecy and suppression. Their stories are included in the report today, the largest investigation of priest abuse in Colorado history. The former U.S. attorney who led this reckoning says these 166 lives were permanently changed, permanently diminished. Kevin Vaughn from our 9 Wants to Know team shares what the Catholic Church in Colorado has long kept from seeing the light of day.
We don't name any victims by name in the report, but we want to make sure their stories are told.
The report does not mince words, laying out in sometimes graphic detail systematic sexual abuse and shockingly sad stories. One priest, Harold Robert White, abused 63 children. At least 4 of the victims later ended their own lives. And while the report provided a difficult look at the past, it was also a call to change the future, to make it easier to report abuse, and to stop protecting child molesters. That's the assessment of former U.S. Attorney Bob Troyer, who wrote the report.
The culture has got to change. The culture has got to shift to understanding that Colorado's criminal justice system is an appropriate place for sending criminals, child sex abusers.
Kevin, the Archdiocese would not sit down with either of us to answer our questions today. They said that they have answered all of the questions, which is not true. So let's talk about some of the questions you'd still like to ask them.
I'd like to ask them why, after Colorado's mandatory reporting law was strengthened in 2002, they still failed to call the police in more than half the cases that they learned about since then.
The Archdiocese will point out there hasn't been a substantiated claim of abuse since 1998. You would like to ask them about a report from 2017.
Right. This was a report about a priest that was active in the 60s and 70s that came to them in 2017. A priest described in the report as the most calculated, horrific, and predatory of all of them. They did not investigate that report, and they went on to tell the Vatican that it was not substantiated, even though they hadn't investigated it.
The Archdiocese provided us with a pre-recorded statement where Archbishop Samuel Aquila says that he has an open-door policy to talk to survivors. Today's report explains what those survivors see when they walk in the door.
They walk into a religious building. They meet with up to 10 people, lawyers, clergy in religious garb, what looks to a lot of them as a hostile environment, and they're expected to tell the stories of the most difficult experience of their lives.
Kevin Vaughn, thank you very much. What the Catholic Church dismisses as past wrongs are very present in Jeb Barrett's life today. He told us he didn't sleep well last night, knowing that the report and its details would be coming out today. Barrett's a survivor, the head of a local survivors network. He's only now comfortable sharing the pain that he kept inside until he was 63.
It's such a mix of emotions. I go back and forth between sad and really angry. My name is Jeb Barrett. I'm the Denver SNAP leader or director and have been since I moved here in 2005. I had never addressed my own abuse until I found people that would listen and believe me. It was incest by a family member, a scoutmaster, a music teacher, and then priest. The emotional pain and shame that comes from that kind of childhood trauma and betrayal is something that takes a lifetime to overcome. When my partner, Norman, committed suicide 35 years ago, and what we went through, the survivors, really caught my attention. He was a victim of the chancellor of the Diocese of Helena, groomed and abused from age 14 to 28, or 27, I guess it was. There's still so much pain around that because he was a wonderful person, he was young. It's painful, But it's what we do with the pain that's important.
Let's talk now about the 43 priests in Colorado with substantiated allegations of abuse. Our article on 9news.com includes a search tool. You can look up a priest by name, by parish, or by diocese. Our research on the 43 priests indicates that most of them are now dead. Less than a dozen are alive. None is currently a parish priest. One is in prison, and one is talking with our Mark Salinger.
Why do you think you were named in the report?
Because of an accusation of 32 years ago. It was a false accusation.
You never went on a walk and touched that 14-year-old?
No, I did not.
Father Michael Desios is one of the 43 priests named in the report. It alleges he molested a 14-year-old boy in the mid-1980s. Statute of limitations would keep him from being criminally charged, but others have. Father Timothy Evans is now in prison for sexually abusing 3 children in the 1990s. He could stay there for the rest of his life.
I did not do what I was accused of.
The Archdiocese of Denver decided Father Michael will never hold Mass again when they learned of the allegations in 2018.
What do you think of the report now, naming you publicly?
I'm disturbed by that. Again, it is not true.
Of the 43 priests mentioned today, the majority have already died. Within the belief of the Church, they have already met the ultimate judge. Others are still waiting. For Next, I'm Mark Salinger.
Denver Archbishop Samuel Aquila said they will not hide from the past. He said that in a pre-recorded statement provided to journalists as the Archdiocese declined to answer questions today. Our most pressing questions for the Archdiocese are not about decades ago. We would like answers about what has happened in recent years and whether the current promise of transparency and accountability means more than previous promises from church leaders. It is certainly the Archdiocese's choice not to answer questions, but it would seem to me like that doesn't inspire a lot of faith. When you have an emergency these days, help is 3 numbers away, just 911. When there's a mental health crisis, it's not so simple. I mean, you're looking up a 10-digit number to get help. There's an idea to make it just as easy as 911. Making it happen, though, is complicated and expensive. Here's our Anusha Roy.
Even the people who have dedicated themselves to improving access to mental health help.
The longer numbers are hard to remember.
They can't remember the crisis line number off the top of their heads. So why would someone in crisis be expected to? Colorado Republican Senator Cory Gardner wants to change that and introduce legislation that would allow people to call 988 for help.
So here in Colorado, for example, a call to 988 might direct to the Colorado Crisis Services.
As simple as 3 numbers sound, finding the right combination isn't. Rolling it out is far from easy, too. The FCC has a whole system just for this kind of thing. It's called N11. It only has 8 codes and might feel familiar, like 911 and 811, all the way down to 211. But the feds already said this isn't the best system.
So it took a while to get 811 set up nationwide and for Colorado.
811 tracks damage to utility lines and took 5 years to set up. The folks in Colorado who helped launch it said legislation was the trickiest part. Then comes educating people and making sure calls are properly forwarded. But once the ball is rolling, it can make an impact.
It's easy for them to remember. It's easy for us to promote as a public awareness message.
I think it will help tremendously because it's a number that children can learn. Everybody can learn 988 the way we've learned 911.
So the FCC is the one who told Congress that it's about time that they start looking at simplifying calling for mental health help. They also realized that going outside that N11 system was going to be way faster than working within it. With that said, though, this is obviously very far from a done deal, so we really want to make sure that we are sharing the Colorado Crisis Services number. That is a number that you can call right now, and they are available 24/7.
The concept is almost deceptively simple sounding. Oh, just set up a phone number.
Sure.
But it is complicated, and as we mentioned, the cost.
Yeah, so the FCC did an analysis on this and said for the first year for the country could cost around $570 million, not only for the changes, but the education, as well as these crisis services. They're probably going to have to expand too because they're going to be anticipating more people calling them.
Yeah, you can't just have it ring and ring.
No, exactly.
Right. Thank you, Nusha. RTD's revolving door. They're about to cut service because they're losing people as fast as they can hire them. The largest exhibit of Monet paintings in the world. You don't have to buy a plane ticket. Just go downtown. And President Trump announces Colorado is getting a border wall, but it's New Mexico. That's next.
Our latest fall storm came roaring in around 2 o'clock this afternoon. First the wind, then the rain, now the snow. Moderate wet snow falling in downtown Denver. Heavy wet snow falling all day in the high country and on I-70 for travelers there. We managed mid-50s before the cold north winds drove temperatures into the 30s where they are now. This system is a fast mover. It will be out of here by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Denver under a winter weather advisory through 8 a.m. The areas in red, that's a winter storm warning wherever a foot of snow could fall, especially above 7,000 feet. 1 to 3 inches of snow forecast for Denver. We're still seeing some scattered rain showers. Denver north, the rain snow line just over the South Metro through the Tech Center. But some areas around 6,000 feet will see 3 to 6 inches of snow. That includes Morrison, Ken Carroll, Chatfield, down around Parker, Kiowa, Elizabeth, and Highlands Ranch. Drier air working in tomorrow morning, but the drive will be tough with several inches of snow on the ground. We have sunshine in the afternoon, but not really a warm day coming up. So tonight, winter weather advisory for 1 to 3 inches of snow, up to 6 west and south of town above 6,000 feet. Snow ends by 9 a.m., clearing and 43 for a high. Close to 70 as we kick off the weekend. We end the weekend with more cold and snow. Temperatures in the 30s on Sunday, low 40s on Monday. And the 9 News weather app, very handy when you're tracking a storm like this, Kyle.
Thank you, Kathy. So many employees are fleeing RTD that they're considering significant service cuts to bus and train routes. Some of you have asked, is it really that dumpy of a place to work? Well, there is the forced overtime. 6 days a week all year is suboptimal. Our Steve Steger looks at the numbers that make our job sound like a breeze by comparison.
RTD bus and light rail operators better enjoy doing what they do because most of them have to do it 6 days a week. RTD requires operators to work mandated overtime based on need. So far this year, 603 of the agency's 876 bus drivers have had to work on one of their days off each week. That's 68%. 67 of the 161 light rail operators have had to work an extra day each week, too. How is that going over, you might ask? RTD's internal survey of both bus and light rail operators found 78% of them were tired or exhausted. 70% of them saw impacts on their relationships at home. And quite frighteningly, 80% said those schedules impacted safe operations. Since mandated overtime is decided by seniority, this shouldn't surprise you. Between January of 2017 and September of this year, RTD hired 791 bus drivers and 177 light rail operators. In that same time period, they lost 710 bus drivers and 201 light rail operators. The presentation to the board says these problems are eroding the public's trust in RTD. RTD presented the board with a plan to temporarily cut a lot of service last night, eliminating the need for 58 operators. Basically, no one in that room wanted those cuts, but the agency says it is running out of options, Kyle. And you can't imagine working 6 days a week. These people are basically saying it honestly is tough on their lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, when we launched the show, we were working 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us lasted more than 6 months on that schedule. But I mean, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about how difficult it is to get people into these jobs. Yes, pay is one thing, but they're saying, like, literally, this job is ruining my life.
Like, yes, and they have to do it, which is interesting because a lot of people were wondering, can they really say you have to work overtime?
Yeah.
And the law says you absolutely can.
It's legal.
Say you have to work overtime. You have to be paid for it.
Yeah.
And compensated properly, but you can work overtime.
All right. It's good perspective. Thank you, Steve. In tonight's edition of Presented Without Comment, President Trump today made an announcement about border security in Colorado.
We're building a wall on the border of New Mexico, and we're building a wall in Colorado.
I misheard it. Can you play it again?
We're building a wall on the border of New Mexico, and we're building a wall in Colorado. We're building a beautiful wall.
Oh,
a big one
no,
that
no.
really
Oh,
works,
they're clapping
that you can't
and
get
they're
over.
standing.
You can't
They're
get over.
clapping and they're standing for the Colorado wall. They think that we're a border state. He thinks that we're a border state. Okay, all right, so here's the deal. For real. The idea of building a wall or something on Colorado's southern border with New Mexico, shutting off outsiders from the south. We tried that. In 1936, we've told you this story. The governor put armed guardsmen on our southern border to keep out poor people from other places who wanted to come here for a better life. The plan was met with widespread resistance, and the border standoff lasted only 10 days. Now, presumably, somebody with the White House is going to inform President Trump that Colorado is not on the Mexican border and there will not be a wall built here. But who's going to break that to all the people who cheered? Walk into the Denver Art Museum today and it's like Monet, 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 Monet. More than 120 pieces from the famous French Impressionist, the largest exhibition of his work in the world today. The Monet exhibit focuses on something that we Coloradans love: nature.
I actually think this is the only place in the world right now where you can see more than 100 works by Claude Monet. The show here in Denver is the largest and really broadest show of Claude Monet's work in 25 years. Claude Monet was probably the most outstanding and most recognized painters of the Impressionist movement. I think his paintings are very elevating. You look at them and there is beauty, there's joy, there's a song in every painting, and some of the songs might be a little bit more melancholic, some others are jubilant. And this energy that you get out of the painting, I think that's an energy that stays with you. I think people will take away the impression that Monet is much more than they thought he is. He had an enormous respect for nature. And this love for nature, this respect for nature is something that you can take home with you and that you can, when you open your eyes in the morning, when you look out of your window, it might remind you of this.
The show is called Claude Monet: The Truth of Nature, scheduled to run through February 2nd of next year. Your feedback raises a good question about the report on priest abuse today. And some of you think that Colorado's border wall should be on a different side. That's next. Ann asks about the priests accused of sex abuse. Why aren't they being criminally prosecuted? For most, Ann, it's a statute of limitations issue. There's one case out of the Pueblo Diocese that might be prosecuted. It's been referred. C thinks that border wall President Trump talked about should be built at the Nebraska border. The Huskers were just coming through Kansas, probably.